Welcome in, Oklahoma Sooners fans and college football fans, to another episode of Oklahoma Sooners Live. Very excited to be here with you guys tonight. I'm on the road in a hotel, so hopefully the internet connection holds up. It stays true for us. But if you're watching right now, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Looks like it won't let us go live on our new X channel, but you can go and check out Oklahoma Sooners, I guess the Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football over on X. Got a new profile over there specifically for Oklahoma fans. I know that Chad and Tyranny and I are all going to try to pitch in and kind of be active over there and keep you guys up to date on the show and so much more. And then, of course, follow the Voice of College Football at the VOCFP on all social media as well. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, you can always help out by giving a quick and easy a 5-star review. It helps us out, helps us grow a ton over there. We are going to talk first, giving a little bit of a recruiting update, and then getting into the most important game, or maybe the most telling game for Oklahoma going into the 2025 season. And of course, this is preseason. Looking at all of the games, which game do I think should mean the most for Oklahoma, and which one will we find out the most about Oklahoma? And of course, this could change. If Oklahoma were to struggle week one against Illinois State, then sure, maybe that's the one that we look at and say that told us everything that we need to know about Oklahoma. So, obviously things can change, and maybe certain teams don't show out to be as good as you anticipate them to be. And that's totally understandable from the preseason aspect, understanding that teams turn out to be a lot different than you anticipate all the time. But we will dive into that. Make sure to jump in that live chat. If you do donate, then your chat will be read on the show 100% of the time. But let's go ahead and dive into it. And I want to bring up some of the recruiting update. I haven't been on to be able to give much of a recruiting update, kind of go through some of the big-time recruits that Oklahoma's gotten here over the day. And really, any recruit is big-time recruit, right? It's Oklahoma. So they're not going after chumps. They're going after big-time guys. And one of those was Oklahoma's quarterback, Bo Bentley. That was back on Friday, June 20th. And I know Chad and Tierney kind of broke that down a little bit. Go check that video out. So I won't go too far into depth with that. I will kind of give a little bit of a breakdown, because I think there's, some Oklahoma fans and some sports fans in general, college football fans, that don't really understand the timeline to really understand why Jaden O'Neal didn't end up committing to Oklahoma, or staying committed with Oklahoma, I should say, and why the Oklahoma staff pursued after Bo Bentley in the first place. And I understand with today's NIL and transfer portal, even recruiting, it kind of gets treated the same way, that there isn't as much loyalty. And I get that. I totally understand and even share some of that with you guys. But with this one, it was quite a bit different, because Jaden O'Neal, he did commit to Oklahoma and has been committed for quite some time, moved to the state of Oklahoma to play for Mustang. And, a great school for him to be able to develop and get ready for the collegiate level. And that was a good move for him if that was his route. But here's where changes happen, is that he was being recruited by the man who was with Oklahoma at the time. And that was, a man that I know not a lot of people want to talk about, but Seth Luttrell. Seth Luttrell was the guy that went after Jaden O'Neal and got his commitment originally. And so you have to have some kind of sympathy for these kids that commit to a specific coach and then go on to follow that coach wherever he goes. I think you have to have some sympathy, and of course, not everybody will. And again, I get it. I especially in today's day and age, I get it. But the loyalty isn't always to the team. Most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, the loyalty is really with the coach that's trying to get you to commit, the coach that's pursuing after you, the coach that's going after you and recruiting you hardcore. He's the one that you're gaining that relationship with. And that wasn't there for Jaden O'Neal anymore. But that wasn't really the biggest reason. That was definitely a reason for him to possibly even hear other schools out. But then on top of that, when Ben Arbuckle came in, he saw Bo Bentley and said, that's my quarterback. That's the quarterback that fits my system. I want to go after him. And they made it clear. They visited with Jaden O'Neal that they still wanted to go after him as well. They wanted both of them to stay committed to Oklahoma. And that was the goal. That was the hopes. But obviously you can't get everybody to stick around. And if you're Jaden O'Neal, I think you have to understand that you're not their guy anymore, and so you move on. I understand Jaden O'Neal moving on to Florida State. It makes total sense. That just wasn't the guy that they were going after, and you want to feel like any recruit. He wants to feel like the guy going in there. So that's why Jaden O'Neal ended up going on. But Oklahoma's big time recruit. That was back on Friday. So I know it's no breaking news here for me today, but first time that I'm coming to you guys live to be able to talk about that one. More recently, Oklahoma had a 4-star defensive end, pretty big commit for it. Anytime you can get a 4-star, any blue chip is a good commitment. And this one seems to be one of the biggest that Oklahoma's gotten so far. A very big one, very good one to have. And that's 4-star defensive end Daniel Norman. I kind of joked with Parker Thune saying, like, how can you not come to Oklahoma with the last name Norman? So that was just yesterday that he committed. Big time commit for Oklahoma. You want to keep that defensive end. That edge rusher is so important in today's college football, let alone in the SEC. An incredible position to have at the top level, at a top tier out on the edge. You have to have that guy that's able to come off the edge and set the tone for stopping any kind of runs from getting outside and pushing that inside towards your front seven. But then, I guess the rest of your front seven. And you also want a guy like what Oklahoma has in R. Mason Thomas, who can get back there and put pressure on a quarterback and may not always get the sack, but he's back there putting a pressure on any quarterback to make him make bad throws, make him make bad decisions. So going after a top defensive end was absolutely a must for Oklahoma. And I think you just have to keep on stacking on in that room. And obviously that was the big one there for Daniel Norman. Huge get for him. He's 6'4", 230 pounds, big dude, big stature. He is out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And he chose Oklahoma over some pretty big programs too. From being from Florida, he chose over Miami. Colorado is also a name being thrown in there. And no, they're not quite the prominent name that Oklahoma is, but still a big name, especially with who their head coach is, and Deion Sanders. Penn State, another big-time school, especially when we're talking about defensive ends, any kind of defensive lineman. Penn State is definitely a good one to beat out, even LSU and others. So a lot of big-time schools going after this guy. I think that kind of puts Oklahoma fans, or really any fan who's paying attention to any kind of recruiting, it puts you a little bit more at ease when you know that the guy that you were recruiting and the guy that you ended up getting was also being recruited by other schools who you respect. And that was absolutely the case here for Oklahoma, picking up Daniel Norman. He did tell OU Insider that a big reason why he ended up coming to Oklahoma was that he was looking for schools when he was going through his visits, that he wanted to go to a school that would be able to develop him. And of course, Coach Chavis felt like he offered that with the most confidence, kind of gave that to him, offered that to him, where he really felt like he could be developed at Oklahoma. And of course, you walk through those facilities, but they are top facilities. But obviously, if you're going through LSU and Penn State, Miami, they've also got big facilities. But it came down to the coach, and Coach Chavis really pressed and showed him the development that he could put him through and offer to him. An interesting fact about Daniel Norman is that he also comes from St. Thomas Aquinas, the same high school that Nick Benito came from. And I actually just found this out today when I was reading. The same high school that longtime athletic director Joe Castiglione also came from. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's a fun fact to throw in there, but a big time get for him right now. As of right now, Coach Chavis, he's got locked in, for the commitment. He's got Daniel Norman and Matthew Nelson, but they're still remaining on the hunt, trying to get more of those edge guys. You've got D'Anthony Lafayette, another guy that Oklahoma really hopes to land. And I think the biggest one that, man, Oklahoma would have to be ecstatic about getting is Jake Kruel, the number 3 edge rusher in the 2026 class. He's been teasing it at Oklahoma, but he hasn't really given that full commitment yet. And it's going to take a little bit longer, I think, for him. So we'll see. We'll see where that ends up landing. But as of right now, landing Daniel Norman, big time get for the edge rusher and a guy that can set the tone on the edge. So a big time get for Oklahoma there, a commit that just happened yesterday. Also, number 3 star, it's a 3-star linebacker who was one of them. I think he was the most recent after the Champ Barbecue, if memory serves me correctly. But linebacker Bo Jandreau, Jandreau, I think his name is. I might be pronouncing that last name right, but I'll get clarification on it. But anyways, Bo Jandreau, who, if you remember correctly, just a little while back, I think about 6 weeks ago, Oklahoma landed his brother, his twin brother, Nico Jandreau, who is a safety, 3-star safety. Both these guys, they're rated at 3 stars, but I've watched the tape on both of them. I've watched more of Nico. And Nico, I'm very excited about. I still see a lot of promising things out of Bo as well. And so this was a big time get for Oklahoma, and kind of solidifying that. I mean, it's a guy that Oklahoma wanted. He's a 6'1" dude, 250 pounds. 215 pounds. A dude that you want in that linebacker room. He's from Chandler, Arizona. So yes, 3-star. And I know a lot of Oklahoma fans kind of see that 3-star and think, man, couldn't you get any better? Couldn't you get any higher? And again, I understand where you're coming from. I get it. But a big time get that Oklahoma wanted. He also held offers from Washington, Notre Dame, Tennessee, USC, and other Power 4 programs. So again, seeing who else is pursuing after him is big for Oklahoma fans to look at, to be able to recognize that. So that's something when you see the other schools, I think that at least validates a little bit about who this guy is. Again, these are guys that if you look at the tape, you can see what this coaching staff was seeing in them, guys that are able to set the tone. I think I kind of put a little bit of a comparison of Bo's brother Nico to a Billy Bowman type player. And I just say that because he's fast. He's kind of a smaller guy, but he's fast, and he's a heat-seeking missile down the line to find a guy. If you're running the ball, he sniffs it out very quickly. And Bo, I think Bo just shows a lot of maturity in his game, and shows obviously a lot of athleticism. He's a big dude. He's able to put the hurt on him and show that linebacker stature the way that we've seen from other big time linebackers in the past. So a couple of good gets. I would rank both of these gets right now. I think ranking him as a C+ is solid. That's you can't necessarily go for every 4-star and 5-star out there in the nation, and you have to understand that a little bit. So we'll definitely see how these two play out, but I have a good inkling about both of these guys, and I think seeing how Oklahoma's defense has played since Brent Venables took over, you have to at least give the benefit of the doubt there. In my opinion, you have to give the benefit of the doubt that who he's going after is probably gonna go off. I mean, it's probably a couple of good dudes here if he's going after him. One thing too that I thought was kind of funny, that Oklahoma now has 3 sets of brothers. Could have been 4. They have the Hawkins brothers, they have the Bowen brothers, and now the Jandreau brothers. And so next season you'll see 3 sets of brothers. You almost had 3 sets of brothers this season. I guess you did a little bit in the spring with the Sawchuk brothers because Gavin went to Florida State. Gabe Sawchuk still on the roster as of now. So just kind of interesting to see how Oklahoma just seems to keep on going after those brothers. It's I kind of teased a buddy of mine that it's almost like they're trying to keep it a true brother, like a literal brotherhood. You think of that's kind of a term used for football teams. It's a brotherhood, kind of showing that you're all close. This is literally a brotherhood. You're throwing together a couple of brothers, 3 sets of brothers next season. So as long as everybody sticks around, so kind of interesting, a lot of fun to look at. But go ahead and jump in that live chat. I do see some people jumping in the live chat right now. I will get to the live chat again. Quick reminder, if you donate, those donations will be read on the show 100% of the time. But I'm going to dive into it. Let's talk about the most important game, or I think the most telling game for Oklahoma this upcoming season. And this is all completely subjective. You can take any one of these games and say that this is the game that is the most important, or like I said, the way that I'm trying to go about this is not really necessarily the most important game per se, because obviously the next game is always the most important, right? But I want to attack this by taking the game that I look at on the schedule and say, what is the game that we look and we say, all right, we know what we're getting out of this team. When can you feel confident? Because I think last season that would have been probably Tennessee. Oklahoma didn't look very good against Houston, and I think that said a lot about Oklahoma. And I'll talk more about that too. But Oklahoma didn't look good against Houston. It said a lot, but we were kind of scratching our heads, wondering, is that the team that we're going to see this season? And then you go on to that Tennessee game, and the way that the team performed overall, and specifically offensively, that just felt like that's what we're going to get. That's the game that you saw. This is what the Oklahoma Sooners are. They struggled and couldn't put anything together. The turnovers were obviously the big one, the 3 turnovers in the first half. I believe at least 2 of those down there in scoring position, one of them inside the 10, I think inside the 5-yard line or right on the 5-yard line, the very next play. So that was the game that you saw Oklahoma perform and said, yeah, that's probably what we're going to see this season. So what is that game for what Tennessee was last season? And I think that the obvious one that I've heard a lot of people saying was Michigan. And I think this game could be considered as the biggest game for Oklahoma, and the game that what you're going to get from Oklahoma going forward, just because it's it's early in the season. I think there's several reasons to look at that one, and I totally understand a lot of talking heads kind of taking that game and saying that's the most important game for Oklahoma to set the tone. And I don't disagree with the reasons that I've heard from others that use Michigan. It's a marquee non-conference matchup, a couple of significant national brands in that game, and I totally get that. And you think of 2 teams that you've got maybe not necessarily playoff implications that early in the season, and with these 2, because again, I think it matters more about what you do in conference nowadays with the way that the playoffs are set up, and of course that could change by the time that we get around to it. But it's a couple of strong teams who really are very similar. You take a look at last season and everything that Michigan went through. It's almost identical to what Oklahoma went through last season. Poor offensive line, injuries. The defense was strong, but the offense couldn't do much. And that's exactly what Oklahoma had. So you're going to have 2 defenses that I think will show up in that game, and it's two teams that are expected to have a big boost this upcoming season in 2025 that compared to what they did in 2024. And I think a win against Michigan could boost Oklahoma, and I totally agree with that. But I just don't think that this is the team that I look at and say I know what Oklahoma is going to be going into the season based on that game, because I don't know what Michigan's going to be going into this upcoming season. So let's say there's a couple of ways that we could look at that Michigan game. And the first way you could look at that Michigan game is say, okay, let's throw out the bad scenario first. Oklahoma loses. I think it depends on how Oklahoma loses. If Oklahoma were to lose in a tight one and you feel like you had a lot of good plays that you just couldn't put together the right game plan, but you felt good coming away from that game as a whole about the team, just wasn't a good game plan that week, and you kind of feel question marks. I think that could go one way. You could get blown out, which I don't think is going to happen, but that could happen, and then you feel bad about the team going forward. So there's ways that I think getting blown out or even blowing Michigan out of the water could make you feel really good, and you feel like pretty well what this team's going to look like going forward. But I don't think that Michigan game is really going to set the tone for what Oklahoma is, just because at that point in the season, correct me if I'm wrong, the second game of the season, neither of these teams have really gotten everything out there and have pieced everything together. So Michigan may be better than what we see in Norman in that week 2 matchup. They may be way worse. Who knows? Maybe they're expected to be good, and they're this great team, and Oklahoma comes away with a hard-fought win, and you feel good about it, which you should. But then Michigan goes on, and let's say that they go on to have another season like they did last season, where it just wasn't a good season. And that's a total possibility. I think Michigan should be good, and I think that game should be one of those games that we can look back on and say, okay, we saw exactly what we saw out of that team against Michigan. I do think that that's the case. But kind of like what I'm seeing in the chat a little bit is that I think Texas is that obvious team that's the one that for sure. That's the one that you feel solid about Oklahoma is how you perform in that game. Because I think the 2 bigger matchups for Oklahoma would be Michigan and Auburn before Texas. And those 2 teams are kind of similar in the way that Oklahoma could perform really well against them, and you still don't really have a full understanding of how this team is going to perform throughout the rest of the season. I think Oklahoma could perform pretty dominant. Let's say that they have a really good showing against Michigan, and then they come out and they beat Auburn, but you still don't really feel that gut feeling like this could be the team. But when you go down to Texas, I have no reason to believe that Texas is going to decline the way that we've seen other teams. I think that you've seen this Texas team decline big time after losing guys like their quarterback, and of course Quinn Ewers, a great quarterback at that. And they've lost a lot. I think they've lost offensive line. I think they've lost some guys on the defense. They have lost a lot, and quite a bit of that to the draft. So you would normally think that this Texas team has a lot of reasons to have a decline, but what Steve Sarkisian has done really well at is, one, replacing guys through the portal, and two, recruiting, being able to recruit and stacking guys on guys. I think that's something that he's done really well at. And so I have no reason to doubt Texas. They're nationally talked about right now as one of the top teams. And so if Oklahoma were able to come out and even just performing well against Texas and making that to where you get points up on the board, you're not getting blown out the way that you have 2 out of the 3 years under Brent Venables, then I think you feel good about Oklahoma. You feel like there's something there if you were to perform well, because I think by that point we'll feel pretty high on Texas. Now, if you come out and beat Texas, regardless of how that ends up showing out, you end up beating Texas and you're feeling pretty good about the rest of the season. I think there's games like at Tuscaloosa, even going to Knoxville, I think will be a tough one just because of the environment. I give a lot of credit to that environment and what they're able to help as far as winning games. So there's a couple there. Of course, LSU coming to Norman, I think, is another one that you look at. They're all tough ones that you look at, but you start to feel a lot better about those tough games if you can take down Texas. And so, like I said, I don't disagree with the reason that people are giving for Michigan being that big game, but I just don't know if you know enough about Michigan or Auburn going into those games in the early season as you will about Texas, and if Oklahoma is able to take down Texas. So that's why I think Texas is the biggest game for Oklahoma preseason, looking at it as a whole, because you've had time to build up to that game. It's the rivalry that means so much to both fan bases, and of course the best rivalry game out there. I always make a distinction. There's a difference between the best rivalry and the best rivalry game. I say the best rivalry, I give that up to Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl rivalry. I give that because the hatred between those two goes on. The banter goes on nonstop at a level that I just can't compare with any other school. I think there's others that compare with it, like Oklahoma and Texas, even Ohio State, Michigan. But I think Alabama, Auburn gets the best rivalry. But the best rivalry game, that goes to Oklahoma, Texas, hands down. I just don't think you can beat the atmosphere and everything that goes into it. Splitting the Cotton Bowl, an iconic stadium, splitting that down the middle at the 50-yard line the way that they do, half burnt orange, half crimson. And then you've got the State Fair, all of the visuals around that game. You just can't beat it. And so obviously there's so much going into that game that you look at and you have to recognize and say, yeah, that's a game that every year both teams look forward to. There's so much tradition with that game. And obviously every year you want to win that game. That's the one game that you look at and you really want to win because you want to stick it to your rivals. And so, that there's many reasons why that could be the biggest game, but here's another one, another reason for why that Texas game means so much more in 2025 and means so much to the entirety of the season. Like I said, it means a lot because I think if you can beat Texas, then you show that you're back. Oklahoma's finally feeling good about where they're at if they can beat Texas. Obviously, if you can be undefeated at that point, then you really feel good about it. But you finally feel like you've achieved something and you've got something going forward. You feel better. But the next reason I want to give you is that you look at what Oklahoma's done and just what I mentioned. The two blowouts that Brent Venables has suffered against Texas. Those are unacceptable. And Sooner fans don't forget those two blowout games and won't forget those two blowout games. Of course, you were able to forget about it a little bit the first time when you came back and Dillon Gabriel helped march down and have a last second drive to throw it to Nick Anderson in the end zone and win that one in such an emphatic fashion and in a way that really stuck with Oklahoma fans. And that was a game too that Texas was the better team that year. I don't really know many that would argue with me on that. Texas on paper was the better team that year, but Oklahoma was the more physical team. And that's why they say any given Saturday, because college football is that way. And so you were able to kind of forget about it a little bit, that 49-0. You were able to push that off and say, all right, we'll forget about that because we see an upward trajectory. But then you went right back down and you couldn't score a single touchdown against Texas a season ago in 2024. And so Oklahoma fans now see that mixed in with that 49-0. And this is a game that you cannot lose again. And if you do lose, it better be a really good Texas team and it better be by very little. But ultimately, you cannot lose that Texas game. You have got to win that one to redeem yourself as Brent Venables, as the head coach of the University of Oklahoma. There is so much that goes into that game and the rivalry. I think with every team, there's a certain rival that you have to beat. If you're a head coach and coaching for Ohio State, look at it with Ryan Day. Even though he won the national championship with them, they still feel like, yeah, you better turn it around and beat that team up north. Even Ryan Day, who just won a national championship, that redeemed him. But they still aren't forgetting the fact that he hasn't beat Michigan. And so, if you're the head coach of Auburn, Hugh Freeze is on the hot seat, not because he can't beat Alabama, because he really can't beat hardly anyone, it seems like. But if you are Hugh Freeze, your fans expect you to beat Alabama. Same thing at Oklahoma. If you are Brent Venables and you're the head coach at Oklahoma, we expect you to beat Texas. Since 2000, I mean that's what you expect from your head coach is to win against Texas. And so it's unacceptable. You have to beat Texas. I think Texas is that team that I have respect for Texas in the sense that I feel like they will be a good team this year. Will they be as good as a lot of the media is making them out to be? I don't think so. And I think that Texas could be that team. In my eyes, I think Texas could be that team that is given all the hype preseason, like a Texas A&M is, and then just plummets. I could totally see that happening. But I do have faith in Sarkisian to do something there. So, I think Oklahoma has to take down Texas, and I think that's the big game that really tells you where this season is going. That's the one that really makes you feel good about where Oklahoma is going, is if you can take down Texas. So, again, I think you will learn some things about Oklahoma in that Michigan game. I just don't know if you'll really get a full understanding of where this team is going after that Michigan game, win or lose. I really don't think you'll know for sure where this Oklahoma team is at when you play Michigan. But when Oklahoma plays Texas, that's the time that you'll finally see it. That's the time that you'll see what this Oklahoma team is made of in 2025. I want to jump to the chat again. Jump in the live chat. If you donate, it will be read on the show. I do see Sooners for life. He says the only answer is Texas, and I'm assuming to the thumbnail or to the title of it. What is the most important game? Yeah, I agree with you. Just gave my reasoning. It is Texas, and I think a lot of people saying Michigan have a reason to say Michigan, and I get it. I think you will learn a little bit about Oklahoma. I don't think you're going to learn everything about Oklahoma, win or lose. I don't think that's the case. The Gridiron Insight, he's in the chat. He says, I think the Sooners will bring the Thunder in 2025. I see what you did there, and congrats to Thunder fans. It was a really impressive season for Thunder, for the OKC Thunder. I'm not an NBA fan. I was supporting the Thunder, but I was happy to see the Pacers make it too. So obviously I was going to pull for the Oklahoma team. I'm not going to go against the state of Oklahoma, but ultimately great season from them. But hopefully Oklahoma will bring the Thunder, or maybe they can be the Lightning to the Thunder. I don't know. I'm kind of out of any kind of puns on that. Let's see, Sooner Cowboys, a resident here. He says Felix Ojo had a rough day at 5-star challenge, but glad OU didn't overpay for him. I think that might have been a little bit of a cut there. And then he's also says OU needs to pay for Deuce Gerald's, KJ Ford, Jake Cruel. Yeah, for sure, KJ Ford. Yeah, I mean, I saw KJ Ford, some clips from him. I think it was today, and I saw some. I've seen a lot of good things out of KJ Ford, and Oklahoma fans hope to be able to keep him. Yeah, that's a big one. And then Jake Cruel. Yeah, I think I have a feeling like Oklahoma's going to land Jake Cruel, but I don't know. It's not a very strong feeling. It's one of those like I feel like we got it, but it could slip away at any moment, and because I really feel like from what I've read on him and his decision so far, I feel like Jake Cruel doesn't really know for sure where he's at. He's not sure where he's going to commit yet. So I'm interested. Excuse me, but for sure, I would say for sure Jake Cruel and KJ Ford on that list. Deuce Gerald, I haven't looked too much into him, so that's definitely a name I need to look into a little bit more. I'll definitely look into him and check him out for you, Sooners Cowboy or Sooner Cowboys. Man, I'm getting my tongue tied up here at the end here. 3-star you. Okay, so I understand where you're coming from. Okay, but just recognize one. This is super early in the recruiting process. Super early. So most of the time, your 3-star guys are going to recruit pretty early. So I think I think you can be okay with seeing a lot of these 3-stars roll in right now because it's early. You're going to get 3-stars, then you're going to start to see a little bit more 4-stars. Some of those 4-stars are going to even be pushing themselves back even further. I think Jake Cruel could be one of those guys that you see just really hold off. I don't know. And then yeah, I don't know. I think obviously the 5-stars, that's what you're going to see, like what you saw with Michael Fasusi, how late it was for him to finally make his official commitment, and he kind of left it up in the air, but we all knew he was coming to Oklahoma. So I understand the sentiment. I get it. And even with your next comment, I'm assuming that was when I was talking about the 3-stars that Oklahoma got. And we'll see how it all plays out. Yeah, and I think you got to see how all the recruiting plays out before just criticizing the 3-stars, because you will find some diamonds in the rough with the 3-stars. Andy, and you have to recognize too that the 3-stars right now may even be bumped up to 4-stars. Probably not to 5-stars, but they could be bumped up. That rating is liable to change right now. Will it change? I don't know for sure, but it is liable to change. So just keep that in mind. Let's see here. I do want to throw this one up. He says, "I'm riding on Texas. I'm favoring Texas a little bit too much. I'm trying to keep it PG on the show, but you can take it that way, I guess, if you want. But I take the jabs pretty easily. But no, I really do think that." I have no reason to believe. I mean, Texas has been good. Do I like it? No, I don't like talking good about Texas. I hate it. I hate it just as much as you, and I know that you hate it, and so that's why I hate it even more. But if I'm being totally honest, from just a pure, unbiased standpoint, Texas is okay. He says was named at you. All right, I appreciate that. Then I was gonna say I don't feel like I'm really favoring Texas or anything like that. But even if you did do it at me, man, I'm here all for the games. And I've seen you in the chat before too, so I'm not gonna give you too hard of a time. I see Bishop is in the chat. He says, "Big salute, fam." Big salute right back to you, Bishop. Had a good time talking to you last Thursday. Big reminder to all of those watching right now. Tune in again on Thursday. I'm not sure if hopefully my internet connection's been okay. I'm in a hotel tonight. I'm traveling for work. So, hopefully my internet's been okay. It will be good on Thursday whenever we have the live show. That's going to be a call-in show. So tune in on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central Time. That's when we can check that out too. I see Sooners for life. He says Nagy isn't focused on star ratings. Yeah, he's not at all, really. I think Nagy, you have to give it to him. Show me one move that he's made that makes you feel like, I don't know about that. Hasn't yet, really. Hasn't yet. So I mean, I like it so far. I like what we've seen out of him. Hopefully it all lives up to the hype. Hopefully it all keeps on going the way that it's been going. But I really do feel like, man, I don't have a reason to hate on him yet. Let's see here. Ross says, "Who's the next commit besides Gross?" I'm not sure. I would say I think Oklahoma's closing in on a wide receiver. There's a few wide receivers that they're going after. I don't have those on the top of my head. I'm not a great uh, what do you call that? Maybe a buff on just being able to remember. I think Parker and Brandon are two of my favorites. I'm close to both of them. They've been amazing to me, giving me some huge opportunities. But I'm not like them where I can remember that they covered a lot more. My man Jay Smith, he's really good at remembering recruits off the top of his head. I know there's a few. Dickerson, I think, just committed to Kentucky today, so that's not going to happen. I was hoping that Oklahoma would pull him in. There's a couple of other wide receivers too. And I'm not going to take the time to look it up right now. So I do apologize not having that off the top of my head. It's live. But I know that there's a couple of wide receivers that I'd be hopeful for. That could be the next. It's hard to tell, but it's all up there. I think a wide receiver. That's what I would put my money on. A wide receiver would be next, just because I feel like that's got to come soon, right? Oklahoma's trying really hard. I think you look at what they've done so far in at least attempting in terms of recruiting, and even in the portal, what they've tried to go after in the portal. Obviously not being able to pull up on some of those. There's one from Indiana that I was really looking at last season that I was hoping Oklahoma could land on. And again, I'm drawing blanks on names because I just don't have them in front of me right now. But there's even one from Cal that they were trying for some big names. Josiah Martin, maybe. I can't remember his name. I mean, they've tried really hard in the wide receiver room to build that room up, and so I do have faith that they're going to be able to start pulling some of those guys in as well. Ross also says some of those 3 stars are close to 4 stars right now. Anyway, yeah, and I would say Nico is one of them. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if that's true or not. Nico is one of them, man. Like, he's a 3-star, but look at him. Watch his tape, because I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what all goes into it. Maybe I can get Parker on one of these nights and have him talk with me. Maybe I'll shoot him a text and see if Parker Thune will jump on and kind of explain that a little bit. And we can also chat more about Oklahoma too. But I really feel like there are some guys like Nico Jandreau. I think he's one of those guys that, looking at his tape, like I said, I see a Billy Bowman-esque. I'm not comparing him to Billy Bowman, just that style of play. Where I see that out of him quite a bit, because like he loves to find the ball and he loves to hit hard. He's really quick out to the edge too. I see a lot of potential out of him. He's one of those guys that I think is a 3-star, sure, but 4-star potential for sure. Chuck is there in the chat. He says they say Deuce Gerald doesn't have the measurements that Nagy likes and will not overpay. Yeah, I mean, I've seen. I've seen similar reports with Deuce Gerald. Like I said, I haven't looked a whole lot into him, so I don't know too much about him personally. But I did see, I think, some clips today, kind of looking at him. I think it was today or yesterday. I saw some of his clips a little bit, kind of going around. There was something over in Indiana, I believe. There was a showing for them, and so I saw a few clips. But yeah, ultimately, like I said, I'm gonna put my faith in Nagy right now while we can, because I think he's shown that he's really interested in building this program back up and getting it back to prominence, and he's done a really good job so far. And then also Sooner Cowboys says it'll be a shame if OU don't get him. I don't know if it'll be a shame. I don't know. I mean, like I said, you can't get every 4-star, every 5-star that you want. You're going to have a lot of 4-star, 5-stars on that board that you just won't get. And sometimes that's okay. I can try to pull up real quick just to see. And so jump in that live chat real quick. I'll give a few more minutes. I will see if I can pull up real quick to see. I feel like I saw something on him recently too, on Deuce, and that was something that I should have saved to bring to your guys' attention, but I don't see it. It's not on my page anymore. But yeah, it was. You can't always expect to get every 4-star, 5-star, and like Chuck says down there too. You have to get the money right, and that's the cold hard truth of NIL nowadays, and especially now with, I don't know exactly where that's at. I should look into that with the NCAA versus House settlement, or House versus NCAA settlement. I should look into that and see where that's at, because I know that there was something that they kind of put something against it for Title IX. Apparently, there was no mention of Title IX against it, or in the entire settlement. So that was kind of shocking. And so that got brought up and said, hey, we need to fix this. And so I don't know if that's, I need to look into that again and see if that's truly in effect, since it had, what's that called? Basically an argument against it. So, but anyways, with today, with NIL, when it comes to the transfer portal, when it comes to recruiting, you have to go after the best players that are available to you. And especially now that you're going to have to start to look at salary caps to an extent, because even those salary caps don't really go into how much they can make outside of what the school is paying them. So there's a lot of silliness to it, but ultimately that's where we're at with college football nowadays. So yeah, I get it, but I think finding the diamonds in the rough, as long as you're able to find them, and I think in the next couple of years you're going to start to see whether Oklahoma found them. I think there's a couple on the roster right now. I think a lot of people, when they first saw Giovanni Gibson come over, they thought maybe that's one of those guys that you think he's a diamond in the rough. I just don't see it. Then they started to see a little bit more clips, and again, that's all in practice, so you can't put too much stock into that. There might, I'm sure there's a few others that I'm overlooking on the roster right now. But I think for sure in the next couple of years, especially when you start to see Jim Nagy's guys come to the field, come out there and show what they're capable of, I think you're going to start to see whether those diamonds in the rough are paying out for Oklahoma or not. So that'll be pretty important. I'm excited to see where that leads. But again, I want to appreciate everybody. I want to tell everybody that I appreciate you for tuning in, for jumping in the live chat, all that. I know we didn't get it going live on the X channel that we've got, but go follow the show. You can now follow Oklahoma VOCFB. You can follow us on Instagram and X, and I think even a TikTok has now been made. I'm not sure how much we'll be able to post over to those, but we are trying to get those, at least the Instagram and X, going, and trying to get some stuff up on there. I know Chad, T, and I are all going to try to work on that. So hopefully we'll get those channels going. So go give those a follow real quick. We'll have to start posting the links down in the description for those as well. Those are brand new channels. So go give us a follow on social media. You can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Real Josh Mahler. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Again, tune in on Thursday for the live show. Have a live call-in show. I'm actually going to have Jay Smith from Locked On Sooners, good friend of mine. He's going to be on the show with me, hopefully, as long as everything goes to plan. So make sure to tune back in on Thursday. But I appreciate it. You guys, we'll catch you next time.